This is River Euphrates, the large river, the greatest river in the Bible days. This is the days when it was full, but we realize in recent times, the river Euphrates is getting dry, like it is written in the book of Revelation. This is River Euphrates now. What is happening? Right in our presence, right in our eyes, the prophecy of the scriptures are getting fulfilled. This is to tell everyone that the end is near, nearer than what we think. And we are going to unravel the secret behind this great river Euphrates. This is Oluseyi Matthias, and you are watching the Diary of Truth. It is end time, like I used to say, and so many events are happening in the world right now that is an eye-opener to any Christian or anyone in the world who want to escape the judgment that is coming upon this world. The curtain is unfolding, and men, women of all religion, of all age, are made to see the things unfolding gradually in this end time. And therefore, it is foolish of anyone to hear and to see all these things that are happening and to still remain in the life of sin that they live. So I want to appeal to you. This video is not just for you to get informed about what is going on around the world. It is for you to prepare yourself to be ready for the coming of the Lord. Because so many things are happening in the world right now. The other time, I told you about a man that has appeared that is being called the Messiah of the Jew, and that is going to bring peace. And with the way that was said, we understand that a similar thing, things are moving fast in the Middle East, especially in Israel, to bring peace, to build a temple, and every materials needed has been provided for. Now, today is another breathtaking issue that has taken place, and is also in connection to the end of the world. It is about River Euphrates. River Euphrates is a river that is very, very important to Bible prophecy and also to the world at large. In fact, if anyone is going to understand prophecy as it is written in the scriptures, then you must understand the events that will surround or that surrounds this great river Euphrates. We are going to be talking about Euphrates today. We are going to see what are the things. In fact, presently, as we speak now, according to what the scripture says in the book of Revelation, chapter 9, it is already fulfilling. In fact, part of what will happen under the judgment of the sixth trumpet and the sixth vial is almost fulfilling. Because as we speak, the river of Euphrates is drying up. In fact, the major part of it is drying up in such a way that the fishermen and then the farmers that have their businesses around this river are regretting. They are planning to relocate, to move away from the place of their work. They are almost becoming jobless. And there's also prophecy or prediction by the Ministry of Water in Iraq that in the next 20 years, Iraq will have no river left, which means with the way things are around the river Euphrates, River Euphrates has been predicted, like the scripture prophesied, that is going to dry in the next 20 years. This is scripture being fulfilled right in our presence. And we know that this drying up of the river Euphrates is symbolic. The symbol that it gives to the end time is that it is going to give way to the armies of the east to march to Jerusalem in order to for the battle of Armageddon. The armies in the east will be given way. They will be marching through this river that will be dry of every water, and then it will give them access to march freely to Jerusalem at the battle of Armageddon, which means things are already taking shape. This is a river that it has never crossed anyone's mind to dry in the next 100 years. It has not happened before since it watered the Garden of Eden when God created Adam and Eve in that garden. Now, before we go on into all these things, I wanted to see one of the reports concerning this river Euphrates. And then when I come back, I will do justice to the topic of today. Please watch.
The drying up of the Euphrates River and the appearance of the Golden Mountain in Congo are often associated with signs of the end times. The Euphrates River and the Golden Mountain that shocked the world gave a signal that the apocalypse was near. As the Prophet Muhammad said, when the Euphrates River dries up in this country, a mountain of gold will appear. Even the apocalypse would not occur if the Euphrates River had not dried up. And recently the world is excited because the water in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers has caused drought across the country, and one area in particular that is in danger of drying up completely is the swamp lakes. Lake Sawa is located northwest of Samoa in the southern province of Samoa. The lake is known for its high salt content, and this year's drought has made the fund look like a lump of salt. One of the main reasons for this lake is the decrease in water levels in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which are the main source of life for Iraq. Abdullah, spokesman for Iraq's Ministry of Water Resources, said that the Sawa Lake had completely dried up. This is the first time in the history of Iraq Sawa Lake is heard completely. The problem is groundwater abuse in the area, with low rainfall and climate change. It is known that this area is 5 meters above sea level, with a length of 4.47 kilometers and a width of 1.77 kilometers. Water scarcity is a serious problem in Iraq. The impact of the low rainfall in Iraq has been exacerbated as the water levels of the country's two main rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, have fallen due to upstream dams in neighboring Iran and Turkey. On the other hand, last February, a golden mountain appeared in the Congo. This is what invites some Muslims to raise these two events as a sign that the world will soon end. Before the Golden Mountain appeared, there were many who translated that the Golden Mountain mentioned in the prophet's hadith was oil. It's no wonder that oil is also often referred to as black gold. The discovery of a mountain of gold in the African Congo proves that it is wrong to think of a mountain of gold as oil. The prophet's prophecy about the Euphrates River seems impossible, but is it true that the phenomenon of the dryness of the Euphrates River and the emergence of golden mountains in the Congo are signs of the end of times? Everything that happens is the absolute will of Allah, and when the apocalypse will occur, only Allah knows.
That report was from the World News TV, and specifically, it talks about, number one, the drying up of River Euphrates, and in connection with Sawa Lake, which is also within the same river. But that is not all. The report also states that Muhammad prophesied about the revelation of a mountain of gold. Immediately, River Euphrates dried up. So, which means there are two books, the Holy Bible and the Quran, all prophesy about the same thing, about River Euphrates. And they all point to the fact that the drying up of Euphrates will happen at the end time. And the news is this: this prophecy has happened, or has begun to happen, because River Euphrates is being dried up due to so many factors. Now look at what Muhammad said. He said, the hour will not come to pass before the River Euphrates dry up to reveal the mountain of gold, for which people will struggle, and 99 out of every 100 people will die in the conflicts. The Prophet Muhammad said every guy among them will think to himself, perhaps I'm the only one who is still living. Now this prophecy of Muhammad has also come to pass, the two in one. First, the drying up of Euphrates has begun, just like you can see in Iraq and all the neighboring cities, or the countries that share boundary with River Euphrates are all lamenting. Euphrates is the most important stream in the West Asia, Iraq. It is about 1,780 miles long and then 1.7 miles wide, making it the longest river in the West Asia. The Euphrates River, also together with Tigris, they originate in the Taros Mountains, that's southeastern Turkey, and flow through Iraq. They flow to Iraq through Syria, through 3 different countries. Meanwhile, there are other 2 nations that share basins with it, making 5 countries in all benefiting from the flow of this River Euphrates. You can imagine how big that river can be. To cover about 5 countries is very massive. Now, Euphrates is a river with 2 sources. It originates from a particular highland called Armenia in Turkey. The first source is called Karazu. And Karazu, another word for Karazu is black water in Turkish language. Also, Karazu is also called the Western Euphrates. It is a long river in the East Turkey that is about 450 kilometers long. Now, the second source of this great river Euphrates is called Murat or Muratsu River. It is also called the Eastern Euphrates. So this is the major source, that is Muratsu is the major source of Euphrates River, and it comes from near Mount Ararat, then flow west through various mountains. The prediction from the Ministry of water resources in Iraq has declared or has predicted that in the next 20 years, 2 decades to be precise, there is going to be no more river in Iraq, which means Iraq as a nation depends solely on this river Euphrates for sustenance, agricultural, fishing, and irrigation, and every other thing necessary. So if this river dries in next 2 decades, then Iraq has no more water. In his word, it says Iraq will be a nation without water by the year 2040. Now that the river has started to dry up, it is definitely the sign of the end time and of the end of the world, as we shall see in the scriptures. Now, what does the Bible really say about this river Euphrates? Now, we need to understand one thing. The origin of river Euphrates is the Garden of Eden itself. That is how old this river is. And that is how popular it is, that even in the beginning of the creation, it is one of the rivers mentioned in the scriptures to run through the Garden of Eden. We can see that in Genesis chapter 2 from verse 10. And a great river went out of Eden to water the garden. And from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. Now it begins to mention, he said the first one, the name of the first is Pison, that is, which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. Verse 12 says, the gold of that land is good. There is bellium and onyx stone. Verse 13, he said the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia, Africa. You can begin to think of River Nile, because that is the only recognized river capable of fulfilling this, or falling into this. But let me go ahead. Number 4, he said the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that which goeth towards the east Assyria. That is the river Tigris, because the name of Tigris initially was Hiddekel. And the 4th river is Euphrates. Now you can see this is the first mention of this river Euphrates in the Bible. Euphrates is first mentioned, like I said, in Genesis, in connection to the Garden of Eden, is one of the boundary of the Garden of Eden. Now, and 2 of this river had well-known name in our days now. Like I've said, Euphrates is very well known, and Tigris, which is called Hiddekel in the Bible. The drying up of river Euphrates has also brought a lot of things to manifestation. For example, the mountain of gold that is found in Congo in relationship to Muhammad's prophecy. Number 2 is the revelation of so many temples, cities that are discovered or that are being discovered on a daily basis. In fact, there are about 80 sites that have been discovered under river Euphrates since its drying up, that reveals the ancient cities that were buried under this river, under this great river. And then it shows a lot of things, revealing a lot of things concerning the ancient times, the people that lived around the river and in the river. And it's also opened up something, because as you will see later, this river also has revealed our eyes to the possible fulfillment of other prophecies. For example, the fulfillment of the release of 4 angels that were bound under river Euphrates is before now has been a mystery. But now that we see that there are cities buried under this river, and now a lot of rooms, a lot of palaces and temples are manifesting. There are a lot of underground tunnels that are discovered. There are rooms, there are some gates that are seen that shows that there is possibility that these 4 angels might actually be bound in any room yet to be discovered under this river. In fact, there is a video that is showing a man pointing to a gate that went into a tunnel, and then afraid of what evil might lie behind the gate that we are looking at. The man was pointing to this narrow step that goes down into a gate afar up that also enter into a tunnel. And the inhabitants claim that that tunnel or that room, the tunnel leads to where the angels are, although there's no evidence for that. It's only fear and curiosity that can propel that. But the truth is, they might be right in some way, because if the scripture says some angels are bound under river Euphrates and they'll be loosed at the end time to achieve a particular assignment at a particular time and day and month and year, then it shows that the scripture is true, that these 4 angels will be somewhere in the length and breadth of river Euphrates or around there. So here we see that prophecy is being unfolded. But before I move on to all these prophecies and try to explain them to our understanding, as the scripture says it, we also need to know that the site of Euphrates is also the beginning of rebellion in the world. It was a site where Nimrod built the Tower of Babel when he chose, and that's after the flood, in order to kind of go directly against God's instruction to spread. In fact, we are told that this man lived and rose before God. He lived a life of rebellion, direct rebellion to God. And he motivated the world at that time to build a tower, lest they be scattered. But we know the story. The tower came falling down when God looked onto it and destroyed it. That Tower of Babel was built near the river Euphrates. In fact, it was shortly after then that the city of Babylon also sprang up from around the same river Euphrates. And the river, we know that Babylon is one of the world civilization, one of the world power that has great influence on the world at that time. It was one of the first of its kind in glory, in power, in splendor. And Babylon, as it were, in fact, the palace of the emperor was built on river Euphrates. So the water of Euphrates was channeled around the city of Babylon and then under the city. So it was difficult for aliens, armies, to come into the city. God already revealed that Medo-Persia was to succeed Nebuchadnezzar as the world power. So when the time is right, when Belshazzar committed the sacrilege of using the Lord's vessels to drink wine in front of idol worship, and then God said it was time. Meanwhile, before this happened, God has set Cyrus outside somewhere, cutting off the water of Euphrates from flowing to around or under the city in order to allow entry through the tunnel that the water is passing into. And then that same night, as soon as Daniel gave the prophecy that because you have defiled the vessels of the Lord's house, tonight you will be killed. Not knowing that at the moment Daniel was telling Belshazzar that the enemies were already surrounding the city. That same night, this enemy entered into the city through river Euphrates into the city of Babylon, and then arresting the king. They killed the king, they took over the kingdom of Babylon, and that was how this kingdom, Medo-Persia, became the world power after Babylon. Now, the point is this: Babylon was actually built on and around this popular river. Now, let me say here that Babylon, the ancient Babylon that is currently in ruin, will soon resurrect. The Bible has a lot of prophecy from Isaiah to Jeremiah, even to Revelation, that the Babylon will be rebuilt and will become the capital of the man of sin, the Antichrist. It will start the headquarters in Babylon, which is present-day Iraq, and then from there, he will lift up himself, make Jerusalem the second headquarters at the middle of the tribulation. And that is when the Israelites will run for their life to the mountain. Just like Jesus told them that when they see soldiers coming into Jerusalem, into Judea, they are to start running. And they should pray that their flight is not in winter or on the Sabbath, because it will be difficult for people to run, for some people to escape at that time. So he was talking about the great tribulation when the Antichrist moved against Jerusalem, making himself God and setting himself in the third temple, which I said last week is the planning for the building of it is completed. It's just for the Temple Mount issues and conflicts to be resolved, and then for authorization of the building to be given. That is what the world is waiting for. That is what the Jews are waiting for. So, but then Babylon will be the headquarters of the end-time government, where Antichrist will start to rule the Middle East and all the 10 nations, all the 10 countries or kingdom that will be under him. And then if that is going to be, I think movements are ready now, because as we speak, the World Heritage is making sure they finish the plan that Saddam Hussein started before he died, because all the planning Saddam Hussein had actually planned to rebuild that place, to rebuild Babylon, and until it was cut short because of a lot of things that happened then. Now, the major thing is this: when that time comes, the world is going to have a new king. It's going to be a new sheep. And because of the atrocity that this man of sin, the Antichrist, is going to do at that time, because the world is going to enter into a period of lawlessness, because the salt of the world will have been taken away, the church. There are three major prophecies about Euphrates. The first one was a promise. It's more of a promise than prophecy. And that promise was given to Abraham. You can see that in Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. The Bible says, in the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt, that is river Nile, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. This is talking about the river, the same river we are talking about. Of course, you know, there is only one Euphrates in the world since the creation of the world. And that river, it still exists till today. And it's a center around which many Bible prophecies have been played out. But not only that, if you look at where I've just read in Genesis chapter 15, if you see where I've just read in Genesis chapter 15, you will understand there are two boundaries that are stated here. First is the western boundary, that is, we call it the river of Egypt. The second boundary is actually the boundary of river Euphrates. That means the distance between river Nile and the river Euphrates on the map is actually the territory of Israel's possession, as God gave it to them. But now, if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 24, it said, everywhere, that's Moses. And then it went on to say, and Lebanon. He said, from the wilderness and Lebanon. Then he said, from the river Euphrates, even unto the utmost sea shall be your coast. Now, let me explain that a little bit. It's talking about the wilderness. Like I said, the wilderness is the Sinai Peninsula, as it is known today. That is the wilderness. And then it talks about, he says, from that Sinai Peninsula in the south to up to Lebanon at the north. He said that is a territory. That is the north-south territory. Now it now went ahead and says, and from the river Euphrates unto the utmost sea. If you look at that map, you also discover that in that land, Euphrates is to the east, while Mediterranean Sea is to the west. So he's saying the west, that's Mediterranean in the west, that is also the boundary. So we are talking about the total boundary that is within Sinai Peninsula, Lebanon to the north, Euphrates to the east, Mediterranean Sea to the west. That was the original promised land that God gave unto Abraham. But we know that this territory was not fully conquered or occupied by the children of Israel, and it is for a purpose. And the main purpose was that God wanted those people to be tongues in their flesh, simply because, number one, they always go against the will of God. God instructed Israel to destroy all the inhabitants on the promised land. But we realized when we got to Judges, they were making relationship with them. They were marrying them to the extent that they began to worship their idol and relate with them, go into intermarriage relationship with them, and God's anger kindled against them. And God said in Judges chapter 2, verse 20, he said, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel. And he said, because that these people have transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their father, and have not hearkened unto my voice, I also will not henceforth drive out any before them of the nations, which Joshua left when he died. In verse 22, he said, that through them I may prove Israel, whether they will keep my way, to walk therein, as their father did keep or not. Therefore, the Lord left those nations without driving them out hastily, neither delivered them into the hand of Joshua. So God wanted to use these people as chastisement whenever they sinned. Until today, we can see the chastisement still working against Israel. The people surrounding them, the Syrians, the Babylonians, and all the other, the Iraqi, and everyone, all the countries, even the Arabs, the Palestinians, they will not allow Israel to rest, simply because Israel has forsaken God. They have left their first love for God, and their house has been left to them desolate, just like Christ said he did. Even at the time of David and Solomon, which was the strongest king ever in Israel, David did not really destroy all the enemies. What he did was to subjugate them, subjugate the Syrians, and then the Amorites, the Jebusites, the Philistines. He subjugate them and then made them to pay tax. Those people were still living on the land. They were having marriage. In fact, they were having relationship, business partnership with Israel all through that period. That was the way God wanted it to be for now. But in the future, things are going to change, because when Jesus comes and Jesus becomes their king, their Messiah, then he's going to change the course. That extent of land from the river of Egypt, that's River Nile, onto Euphrates, shall be fully optimized by the Jew. Now, that is one prophecy that is yet to be fulfilled concerning Euphrates and the boundary of the promised land given to the children, to the Israelites. Now, the other two prophecies are found in the book of Revelation, and these two prophecies have been widely misunderstood. It is misunderstood by both Christians and the non-Christians. Most importantly, the non-Christians are more confused. But the Christians, who seem to know the scriptures, interpret it the way they know, because we have so many interpretations concerning these two plagues. But then I'm going to be telling about the loosing of the 4 angels from under River Euphrates. And then the second prophecy, which has to do with the drying up of the Red Sea to create way for the kings of the east, and what time is actually going to happen within the time frame of 7 years tribulation. Now, after this, what are the destruction before, during, and after? We are going to see what devastation is going to come upon the world at that time. I'm sure you will not want to miss it. So subscribe to this channel, and then please like